The mining colony of Helios 9 hung like a tarnished copper penny against the rust-red giant it orbited. Commander Rhea Santos watched from the bridge of the UES Vigilant as her ship approached the abandoned facility. 6 months had passed since Earth's forces had defeated the dreaded Crixus Empire, but pockets of resistance still remained scattered across the galaxy like dying embers of a once mighty fire. Scanning for life signs, Lieutenant Park reported from his station, his fingers dancing across the holographic interface. Strange. I'm picking up multiple signatures in the lower levels. They're faint, but they're there. Rhea frowned. Intelligence had marked this facility as evacuated weeks ago. Could be survivors from the local garrison. Or scavengers, she said, though something about the situation made her skin prickle. Prepare a ground team. We'll investigate personally. The descent to Helios 9's surface was silent save for the whine of their shuttle's engines. Rhea led her team of 4 through the facility's airlock, their boots echoing against metal floors thick with red dust. The air was thin but breathable, though the facility's environmental systems were clearly operating at minimal power. Life signs are stronger now, Park whispered, his scanner casting a pale blue glow across his face. 200 meters ahead, sublevel 3. They found the entrance to the lower levels sealed with emergency protocols. It took their tech specialist, Jensen, nearly 20 minutes to bypass the security systems. When the doors finally slid open with a groan of protest, Rhea's team raised their weapons, ready for anything. Anything except what they actually found. The sublevel was a makeshift shelter, clearly prepared in haste. Emergency lighting cast everything in a sickly amber glow, illuminating scattered supplies and hastily erected sleeping quarters. But what caught Rhea's attention were the 2 small figures huddled in the far corner, surrounded by a sophisticated energy barrier. They were children. Alien children, their skin the characteristic silver blue of the Crixus species, their eyes large and luminescent in the dim light. The older one appeared adolescent, while the younger couldn't have been more than what humans would consider 6 or 7 years old. Commander, Park's voice was tight with recognition. Their genetic signatures, their Crixus' offspring, his heirs. Rhea felt her world tilt slightly. Everyone knew Crixus had been killed in the final battle for his homeworld, his mighty empire crumbling in the wake of Earth's victory. But his children, there had been rumors, whispers of heirs hidden away, but nothing concrete. Until now. The older child stepped forward, placing herself between Rhea's team and the younger one. Despite her obvious fear, she held herself with dignity. I am Mira, she said in perfect standard English, her voice barely trembling. This is my brother Vex. We know who you are, what you've done. Rhea lowered her weapon slowly, signaling her team to do the same. We're not here to hurt you, she said, though she knew the words might ring hollow. Earth's forces had, after all, killed their father and destroyed their civilization. That's not what the others said, Mira replied, her large eyes reflecting the amber light. The ones who came before. They'd wanted to. She trailed off, glancing at her brother protectively. Rhea's stomach turned. She could guess what had happened. Not everyone in Earth's military believed in showing mercy to the enemy, especially to Crixus' bloodline. These children had been hidden here not just from Earth's forces, but from their own people who might use them as figureheads for a resistance movement. She faced an impossible choice. Her orders were clear: sweep for remnants of the Crixus Empire and eliminate any threats. These children, by their very existence, could be considered the greatest threat of all. Their mere survival could rally the scattered remains of their father's forces, leading to more bloodshed, more war. But as she looked at them, really looked at them, she saw not threats, but victims. Children who had lost everything, who had been born into privilege only to be cast into darkness by the sins of their father. Commander, Jensen's voice was hesitant. Orders? Rhea made her decision. She activated her comm unit. This is Commander Santos. Sublevel 3 is clear. No survivors found. She ignored the startled looks from her team and approached the energy barrier. "I'm going to help you," she told the children, "but you'll have to trust me." Naira's expression remained guarded, but Rhea saw a flicker of hope in those alien eyes. "Why?" the girl asked. "We're your enemies." "No," Rhea replied firmly. "Your children. And I'm not in the business of punishing children for their parents' crimes." It took hours to convince the children to lower their barrier, and longer still to formulate a plan. Rhea knew she was risking everything, her career, possibly even her freedom, but she couldn't walk away. Not from this. Not from them. As they finally prepared to leave the facility, young Vex spoke for the first time, his voice soft and musical in the way characteristic of his species. "Father said humans were monsters," he whispered, slipping his small hand into Rhea's. "Was he wrong about everything?" Rhea squeezed his hand gently. "People are complicated. Little one. Sometimes the monsters aren't who we think they are. And sometimes the greatest victory isn't winning a war, but knowing when to show mercy." As they ascended toward the surface, Rhea knew their journey was just beginning. She had no idea how she would protect these children, or what consequences her choice would bring. But looking at Nira's determined face and feeling Vex's trusting grip on her hand, she knew one thing with absolute certainty. Some prices were worth paying, and some victories could only be measured in acts of compassion. The safe house on Earth's lunar colony wasn't much, but it was better than a mining facility sublevel. Rhea watched through reinforced windows as Nira and Vex stared in wonder at the Earth hanging like a blue jewel in the black sky. 1 month had passed since their rescue, and every day brought new challenges. "The Council wants answers." Admiral Harrison's hologram flickered in the dim light of Rhea's private quarters. His expression was grave. "Smuggling alien refugees is one thing, Commander. Harboring the children of humanity's greatest enemy is another entirely." "They're children, sir." Rhea maintained her composure, though her hands were clenched behind her back. "They were abandoned, scared, and in danger. What would you have had me do?" "Follow orders." Harrison's voice was sharp, like Captain Reed did when he found them first. Rhea felt her blood run cold. "So you knew. You knew they were there, and you sent Reed to eliminate a potential threat," Harrison finished. "A threat you've now brought to Earth's doorstep. Do you have any idea how many of our people died fighting Crixus? How many colonies he destroyed? And you think murdering his children would balance that scale?" Rhea leaned forward, her voice low and intense. "Sir, with all due respect, if we start executing children for their parents' crimes, we become exactly what Crixus claimed we were." The silence stretched between them like a drawn wire. Finally, Harrison sighed. "The Council is divided. Some want the children eliminated. Others see them as valuable intelligence assets. A few even suggest they could be useful in pacifying the remaining Crixus loyalists." "They're not tools," Rhea said firmly. "They're survivors of a war they didn't choose." "Perhaps." Harrison's hologram flickered again. "But your choice has consequences, Commander. Keep them secure. A delegation from the Council will arrive within the week to determine their fate, and yours." After the Admiral's image faded, Rhea joined the children by the window. Nira had been teaching Vex about Earth's geography, pointing out continents and oceans visible from their vantage point. The younger siblings' fascination with their former enemy's homeworld would have been ironic if it weren't so heartbreaking. "Will they take us away?" Nira asked without turning, her reflection in the glass showing eyes too old for her years. "We heard your conversation." "No." Rhea's response was immediate and firm. "I won't let that happen." "Why do you keep protecting us?" Nira turned to face her, silver blue skin almost luminescent in Earth's reflected light. "Your Admiral is right. Our father killed many of your people. Because protecting the innocent isn't just a duty, it's a choice." Rhea knelt to meet Nira's eyes. "And sometimes the hardest choices are the most important ones." The next few days were tense. Rhea worked tirelessly, calling in favors and building a case for the children's asylum. She documented their intelligence, their willingness to learn, their growing understanding of human culture. More importantly, she recorded their trauma, their fears, and their hopes for a future free from their father's shadow. Lieutenant Park and Jensen, who had been with her on Helios 9, became unexpected allies. They spent off-duty hours with the children, teaching them Earth customs and basic defense protocols. Vex particularly enjoyed learning about Earth's diverse ecosystem, while Mira showed a keen interest in human history. Your people fought wars against themselves, Mira observed one evening, studying ancient historical records. But you survived. You united. How? Not easily, Rhea admitted, and not completely. We still have our differences, our conflicts, but we learned that our shared humanity was stronger than our divisions. What about those who aren't human? Vex asked quietly, looking up from his tablet displaying Earth's wildlife. Where do we fit? Before Rhea could answer, alarms blared through the facility. Lieutenant Park burst into the room, his face tense. Commander, we have incoming ships. They've breached lunar security using old Imperial codes. Loyalists, Nero whispered, pulling Vex close. They found us. Rhea's tactical training kicked in immediately. Park, initiate evacuation protocol beta. Jensen, get the children to the secure bunker. I'll coordinate with lunar defense. But Nera stood her ground. No, she said firmly. We're tired of running, of being used. Let me speak to them. Absolutely not. Rhea started, but Nera's expression stopped her. These people followed our father out of fear or devotion. The young alien's voice was steady. Perhaps they need to see that his children choose a different path. Looking at Nera, Rhea saw not just Crixus' daughter, but a leader in her own right. One choosing wisdom over power, bridge building over destruction. It was a gamble, but then again, every choice that had led them here had been a gamble. As the Loyalist ships drew closer and lunar defense forces scrambled, Rhea made another impossible choice. She would trust these children who had already lost everything to help prevent more bloodshed. Because sometimes, she realized, the greatest acts of courage come not from those who wage war, but from those who dare to imagine peace. The Loyalist ships hung in lunar orbit like dark stars, their ancient imperial design a stark contrast to Earth's sleek defense vessels. In the command center, Rhea watched as Nera stepped up to the communication panel, her silver-blue hand steady despite the tension filling the room. This is Nera, daughter of Crixus. Her voice carried the same commanding presence that had made her father infamous, but tempered with something else. Compassion. I know why you've come, but things are not as they seem. The response was immediate. A hologram materialized. Commander Vaxis, one of Crixus's most trusted generals. His weathered face showed both relief and confusion at seeing Nera. My princess, we've come to rescue you and the young prince from these barbarians. Naira's expression remained calm, but Rhea saw her shoulders tense. These barbarians saved us when our own people abandoned us. They showed mercy when others would have shown malice. They killed your father. Vaxis's voice rose. They destroyed our empire. An empire built on suffering, Nera countered. I've seen the truth, Vaxis. I've accessed Father's private archives. Do you know what I found? She paused, her large eyes scanning the faces of both humans and aliens watching her. Records of genocide. Entire species wiped out not for resistance, but for resources. Colonies enslaved not for security, but for profit. The silence that followed was deafening. Even Rhea felt stunned. She had suspected Crixus' atrocities went deeper than known. But this, everything I believed about humans, about their savagery, was propaganda. Nera continued. Yes, they fought back. Yes, they killed our father. But here I stand with my brother, alive and protected, while those who claimed loyalty to our family would have us continue a cycle of violence that has already claimed too many lives. Vaxis's hologram flickered, his expression torn. The empire was our legacy. Then let us build a new legacy. Nira's voice softened, one not written in blood and conquest, but in understanding and cooperation. Stand down your ships. Join us in creating something better than what we lost. The next hours were tense as negotiations unfolded. Rhea watched in amazement as Nira, barely an adolescent by her species standards, navigated the complex politics with wisdom beyond her years. Vex stayed close to his sister, his presence seeming to give her strength. But even as the immediate crisis with the Loyalists began to resolve, a new challenge emerged. The council delegation, having witnessed everything, arrived early. "This changes nothing," Councillor Reeves declared, his angular face stern as he confronted Rhea. "If anything, their influence over the remnants of the Empire makes them more dangerous, not less." With respect, Councillor, Rhea stepped forward. "What you just witnessed was not a display of dangerous influence, but of peaceful resolution. Nira chose to end conflict rather than exploit it. A convenient performance." Another councillor, Durham, interjected. "But we cannot risk." "Risk what?" Nira's voice cut through the tension as she entered with Vex and Lieutenant Park. "Risk peace. Risk understanding. Risk learning that your enemies might not be as monstrous as you imagined." Durham bristled. "You are your father's children. We are our own people," Nira interrupted, her calm dignity making the councillor's anger seem petty. "And we choose a different path than our fathers." The debate raged for hours, but something had shifted. The Loyalist ships in orbit, now standing down, served as a powerful testament to the children's potential for positive influence. Even more compelling was the evidence Nira had referenced. Data from Crixus's archives that revealed not only the Empire's atrocities, but also its weaknesses. The Empire wasn't destroyed solely by Earth's military might, Nira explained, displaying historical data. It was corroding from within. Father's cruelty created more enemies than allies. Earth's resistance just happened to be the strongest. As the revelations mounted, Rhea noticed something else. The way other lunar base personnel had begun gathering, listening, watching. Humans and the few alien residents alike seemed captivated by these children, who spoke of peace while carrying the burden of a tyrant's legacy. Later, in a quiet moment, Rhea found Nira and Vex in their usual spot by the window. Earth hung above them, its blue expanse now seeming more like a promise than a threat. "Did I do the right thing?" Nira asked softly, revealing Father's secrets. "You chose truth over loyalty to a lie," Rhea replied. "That's always right. But what happens now?" Vex looked up, his young face troubled. "We're still caught between worlds." Rhea smiled gently. "Maybe that's exactly where you need to be. Between worlds is where bridges are built." As they stood there, watching Earth's slow rotation, Rhea realized that perhaps victory wasn't just about winning wars or maintaining peace. Sometimes it was about having the courage to imagine a future different from the past, and the wisdom to learn from both sides of a conflict. The children of a tyrant were teaching humanity as much about peace as humanity had taught them about mercy. 3 months after the lunar confrontation, Earth's capital city gleamed under autumn's sunlight. Rhea stood before the Global Security Council, her dress uniform pristine, her expression determined. Behind her, Nira and Vex sat with Lieutenant Park and Jensen, all of them aware of the gravity of this moment. "The integration program has been a success," Rhea reported, displaying holographic data. "Not only have Nira and Vex adapted to life on Earth, but their presence has facilitated unprecedented cooperation with former Imperial worlds." Cooperation. Councillor Durham's voice dripped with skepticism, or manipulation. Reports suggest that several outer colonies are rallying behind these children as symbols of resistance. "Symbols of change," Rhea corrected firmly. "Under their influence, 3 major Imperial remnant factions have entered peace talks. Trade routes have reopened. Cultural exchange programs have begun." But before Durham could respond, emergency signals blared through the chamber. Admiral Harrison's hologram materialized, his face grim. "We have a situation. Multiple ships have appeared in the Sol system using advanced cloaking technology, Imperial signatures." Rhea's heart sank as she saw Nira stiffen. These weren't peaceful delegations like Vaxus's forces had become. These were the hardliners, the true believers who saw any compromise as betrayal. "They're here for us." Nira stood, her voice carrying across the now silent chamber. "The Crimson Hand faction. They believe they can restore the Empire by—" She hesitated, glancing at her brother. "By eliminating those they see as traitors," Vex finished quietly. "Including us." Chaos erupted in the chamber. Some counselors called for immediate military response. Others demanded the children be surrendered to protect Earth. Through it all, Rhea noticed something strange in Nira's expression. Not fear, but calculation. "Commander Santos," Nira's voice cut through the noise, "I need access to the quantum communication array." "Absolutely not," Durham interjected. "That's a restricted military." "Let her speak," Admiral Harrison's hologram interrupted, studying Nira intently. "The Crimson Hand's weakness isn't their military strength," Nira explained, her composure remarkable under pressure. "It's their devotion to my father's memory. They don't know about the archives, about the truth. Let me show them." Understanding dawned on Rhea. "You want to broadcast the evidence of Crixus' atrocities directly to their ships, along with something else." Nira nodded. "The proof of what Earth has done for us. Not as conquerors, but as protectors, as teachers." The next hours were a blur of activity. As Earth's defense forces mobilized, Rhea worked with her team to prepare the broadcast. Nira and Vex recorded their message, their words carrying the weight of truth and the hope of reconciliation. But the Crimson Hand struck first. Explosions rocked the city as advance forces breached Earth's defenses. In the chaos, Rhea found herself separated from the children, fighting through corridors alongside Park and Jensen as enemy troops infiltrated the building. "They're heading for the children," Park shouted over weapons fire. "They'll try to capture or kill them before the broadcast." Rhea's tactical mind raced. The children were with Admiral Harrison in the secure command center, preparing the broadcast. But if the Crimson Hand reached them first? A massive explosion rocked the building. Through the smoke, Rhea saw figures in Imperial combat armor advancing. But something was wrong. Their movements were erratic, desperate. "They're afraid," Jensen realized aloud. "They know what the broadcast could do to their cause." "Then we make sure that broadcast happens," Rhea determined, charging her weapon. "Whatever it takes." They fought their way through the complex, each step bringing them closer to the command center. But as they approached, Rhea's comm unit crackled with an unexpected voice. "Commander," Nira's tone was steady despite the chaos. "We're ready. But there's something you need to know. The broadcast. It won't just expose my father's crimes. It'll reveal everything. Everything. Including what some in Earth's military did during the war. The colonies they sacrificed. The atrocities they justified. If we do this, both sides' crimes come to light." Rhea felt the weight of that revelation. This wasn't just about saving the children anymore. This was about facing the dark truths that both sides had buried beneath their righteousness. "Do it," she commanded, understanding finally what Nira had meant about building a new legacy. Sometimes peace could only be built on the foundation of uncomfortable truths. As they reached the command center doors, another explosion shook the building. Through the smoke and chaos, Rhea saw Vex helping his sister prepare the broadcast, their silver-blue skin reflecting the emergency lights. They weren't just survivors anymore, she realized. They were pioneers, charting a course between vengeance and forgiveness, between past and future. The Crimson Hand forces were closing in, but in their desperate rush to stop the inevitable, they had revealed their greatest fear, the truth. And as Nira's hand moved to activate the broadcast, Rhea understood that some victories aren't won with weapons, but with the courage to face history's darkest chapters and choose a different path forward. The quantum broadcast rippled across space like a stone thrown into a cosmic pond. In the command center, Nira's voice rang clear and unwavering as she revealed the brutal truths that both sides had hidden. Beside her, Vex operated the controls with surprising skill, ensuring the signal reached every Imperial ship and Earth colony. We were all told stories about our enemies. Nira's broadcast continued, her words carrying to millions across the stars. The Empire taught us that humans were savage barbarians. Humans were told we were nothing but cruel conquerors. The truth, as always, is more complex. The holographic display showed the Crimson Hand forces faltering as the evidence unfolded, not just of Crixus's atrocities, but of the hard choices and dark decisions made by both sides during the war. Rhea watched as decades of propaganda and hatred began to crack under the weight of truth. But truth, she knew, often provoked violence before it brought peace. The first wave of Crimson Hand soldiers burst through the command center's defenses, their weapons charged. Silence the traitors, their leader roared. For the true empire. What happened next would be debated in history books for generations. As Rhea and her team moved to protect the children, Vex stepped forward, his young face showing not fear but determination. He raised his hands, and to everyone's astonishment, spoke in the ancient Imperial tongue, a formal language usually reserved for sacred ceremonies. Look at what blind loyalty has brought us, his clear voice carried across the chaos. Look at what it cost our people, our worlds, our future. The soldiers hesitated, their weapons still raised, but their resolve visibly shaken. In their culture, a royal child speaking the sacred language carried tremendous symbolic weight. Then Nira joined her brother, continuing in the same ancient tongue. We are the children of Crixus, yes, but we are also children of the stars themselves, and the stars do not recognize the boundaries we draw between peoples. The broadcast continued behind them, showing images of cooperation between former enemies, of healing and rebuilding. But it also showed the cost of the war, the devastated worlds, the lost civilizations, the price of pride and power. Lower your weapons, Admiral Harrison's voice cut through the tension. That's not a request. Earth's forces had the room surrounded, but it was the moral authority of the moment, not the military threat, that carried the most weight. Slowly, one by one, the Crimson Hand soldiers lowered their weapons. Their leader, removing his helmet, revealed a face marked with ritual scars of imperial devotion. How can we accept this? He demanded. How can we let go of everything we believed? Not let go, Nira corrected gently. Grow beyond, like we did. The next few hours were a blur of negotiations, surrenders, and revelations. As the broadcast spread across human and imperial space, similar scenes played out on dozens of worlds. The truth, long buried under layers of propaganda and pride, finally saw the light. In the aftermath, Rhea found herself once again before the Global Security Council, but this time everything was different. The children stood beside her not as refugees or assets, but as architects of a new future. We propose a joint commission, Nira announced to the assembled leaders of both human and former imperial worlds, not to assign blame or demand reparations, but to ensure that the truth serves as a foundation for lasting peace. And what guarantee do we have? Counselor Durham asked, though his former hostility had been replaced with thoughtful consideration, that history won't repeat itself. None, Vex answered simply, except our choice to learn from it. The agreement that followed wasn't perfect. No peace built on the ashes of war ever is. But it was real, forged in the crucible of shared suffering and mutual understanding. The children of Crixus, once seen as either threats or tools, became symbols of something far more powerful, the possibility of transformation. Years later, Rhea stood with Nira and Vex on an observation deck of the new Joint Cultural Center, watching ships from across the galaxy dock at Earth's orbital station. The children had grown, Nira into a respected diplomat, Vex into a brilliant scientist specializing in cross-species medicine. Did you ever imagine it would turn out like this? Vex asked, his former childish curiosity now tempered with wisdom beyond his years. Honestly, no, Rhea admitted. When I found you both on that mining colony, I was just trying to do the right thing in the moment. Sometimes that's all it takes, Nira reflected. One person choosing compassion over fear, truth over comfort. Below them, Earth spun serenely, its blues and greens a testament to life's persistence. Around them, the descendants of former enemies worked side by side, their differences not erased but understood, their shared future more important than their separate pasts. You know what I've learned? Vex said suddenly. Father always taught us that power came from strength, from making others fear you. But the real power came from letting go of fear itself. Rhea nodded, watching as another ship docked. This one bearing the new symbol of the Joint Worlds Council, a design that incorporated elements of both human and imperial art. Your father built an empire on fear, she said. You built something greater on hope. Nira smiled, touching the window gently. Not just us, she corrected. All of us. Together. As the stars wheeled overhead, Rhea reflected on the long journey that had brought them here. From a desperate choice in an abandoned mining colony to a new chapter in galactic history. It hadn't been easy, and the road ahead would have its own challenges. But they had proven that even the deepest wounds could heal, that the children of tyrants could choose a different path, and that sometimes the greatest act of rebellion against hatred was simply to choose love instead.